We're not going to have an unrealistic standard of saying, I'm going to do a 6-day a week, 2-day a week gym program. Every bodybuilder you see online will sell you the 6-day program. The arm day, the calf day, the chest day. It's stupid, but it is stupid that they sell that program. Like, it doesn't have to be that crazy. You can train 3 days a week. And Mike Mensa, for those listening who doesn't know who Mike Mensa is, he was a bodybuilder in the Arnold Schwarzenegger era. Mike Mensa was known for training only 3 days a week, 45 minutes.
My rule of thumb is if you want to get better at something, you do it more. But arguably, with most people watching this, I'd say you can train 3 days a week and you're looking at that kind of full body split, and you put people on a push-pull and then full body kind of mechanism to practice your pull-ups, practice your push-ups, and then put them together and put them into the same program. So you can branch down into the sections that work into your week. Don't make your workouts any longer than an hour. That's my big, I say this now, nobody really wants to train longer than an hour unless you're sports specific.
Welcome back to the Perform Well podcast. This is the podcast for you if you're looking for performance and wellness optimization so that you can not only smash your career but also have a better life, better relationships and better health. We believe that performance and wellness are yin and yang and work together. So listen in as we dive into topics that are going to help you optimize your life for the better. Welcome back, guys. If you are watching or listening today, this is a great day for you because today we're going to talk about strength training and how to do it. You guys listening to this, you know that strength training is going to give you the body that you want. You know it's going to build muscle tone, muscle size, make you look better. But how do you do it? That's what we're going to break down today.
I think it's one of those areas that people are so confused about as well. There's so much information online about strength training, about what exercises to do, about what ones are specific for you. But I think there is never a formulation. There's never kind of a strategy that's put together. So the key thing that me and Nick want to talk about today is breaking down the key strategies so you're not sat there puzzled or confused about what exercises you should do, what full body, upper body, what should I be doing? Should I be using dumbbells? Should I be using machines? We're going to give you a nice, conclusive, definitive answer for each of your problems. So, Nick, let's first bring this back a little bit. What got you into strength training in the first place? Because I think it'd be interesting to get your take of why someone might want to do strength training.
I mean, look, me and you, Dan, we are the same. Yeah, because we were both skinny little guys once. You know, no one liked, well, so I say we got bullied for being skinny in a lot of ways. And I got into strength training because I wanted to get big and beefy. I wanted to be noticed. I wanted people to go, shit, I respect that. I respect that guy is a lot bigger. And when you see people in school that are a lot bigger than you get treated with that respect and you don't, it's that like inner child kind of syndrome where you're like, if only I get bigger, it will all go away and I'll feel a lot better. And that's why I got strength training, because strength training is the way forward when it comes to gaining that muscle tone and muscle size, 100%. Now, yeah, go for it.
But I was going to say the key thing as well that I want people to take home from that is you really need to find like the reasoning behind strength training. I found a love for the performance aspect of it now. And, if you're a runner out there, you're listening to this and you're thinking, I want to improve my running performance. Strength training is going to benefit your running performance. If you're a tennis player, if you genuinely, as Nick said, if you want to go for the kind of more physique side of things, that you want to improve your current body composition, fantastic for that. It's got so many benefits, but I think the key thing is to know your focus point from the beginning, because if you go in going just I want to lose weight and gain muscle, it makes it very difficult to stay motivated. And I think that's one of the key factors that people struggle with. It's not necessarily always going to the gym and training. It's if you don't have a structure, if you don't have a plan when you go into the gym, you can lead to being very confused. And I think it's that kind of overwhelming feeling that you look at the weights and go, there's just so much here. What do I do? It's why we get a lot of sign-ups. It's why people sign up for PTs and coaches, because fundamentally, we're the guides. We take them through the process.
Yeah.
This is kind of where things go. So from a strength training standpoint, let's give a little bit of a case study to this. So mine and Nick's background, we were skinny lads and we wanted to get, put on a bit of muscle tone. And, the same applies for women as well who want to build up some tone too. Today, where do you start when it comes to kind of building a strategy in for the gym?
Well, first of all, like we always come back to this. We always come back to time management. We first need to know how much time we have available to us, when we can actually go to the gym. We're not going to have an unrealistic standard of saying, I'm going to do a 6-day a week, 2-day a week gym program. Like, I think, Dan, you can agree with me here, but every bodybuilder you see online will sell you the 6-day program, the arm day, the calf day, the chest day. It's fucking stupid. So mind my language. I want to make sure this is not taken off the PG list, but it is stupid that they sell that program. Like, it doesn't have to be that crazy. You can train 3 days a week. Mike Mensa, for those listening who doesn't know who Mike Mensa is, he was a bodybuilder in the Arnold Schwarzenegger era. arguably, a lot of people would say he looked better than Arnold Schwarzenegger. However, that's debatable. And the key difference between their two training methodologies were Arnold Schwarzenegger would train 6 days a week. And I get it. When you're bodybuilding and that's your passion, it's your career, I get that. Everyone has to do something when it comes to their career. But then Mike Mensa was known for training only 3 days a week, 45 minutes. And it's like, if you can get into the best shape in the world, in a lot of cases, because at that level you are, then there are different ways of approaching the whole strength training side of things. And now, obviously I'm talking about the aesthetic side of things, and today's really about how to build strength. But there is obviously the injury prevention side of things. There is the fact that 65-year-olds, 70-year-olds strength train to prevent bone loss, which can obviously help them, later on in life, so that they can live a better quality of life in their last, 20 to 30 years. And so strength training has a whole wide range of, things. But if you're listening to this, then obviously you're potentially going to be more on the side of things of building your self-image, making yourself look as good as possible and feeling as strong as possible. There's many ways to it.
I think the key thing is, how do we do that then? So if someone's coming to the gym and they're thinking, you're talking about time allocation, perfect. That is the perfect starting point to say, because similar to the meal prep video we did yesterday, you need to know realistically when you can get into the gym. And it's one of the first questions we ask when we have clients come in is, how much time can you dedicate to training? Because most of the time it comes to about 3-4 hours a week. That's like normal. Like I do 3-4 hours a week. I think, Nick, you're about the same, about 3-4 hours, give or take.
You asked me that question earlier, right, about where do you start? And I rambled on to some fucking crazy ass shit right there. I just realised when you came back to it. But yeah, no, you're right. 3 or 4 times a week.
I'm the lasso. I'm just pulling you back.
That's the simple.
Pulling you back to the topic again.
I'm going off into an Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mike Mensa era comparison.
What podcasts are for at the end of the day. But yeah, as I say, it's that how to. So we've got the time. We know where we're going to have that kind of association with time. Now we need to think what the focal point is. Like, what do we want to train? Fundamentally, I wanted to build up my frame and my structure. Same with Nick. But we have to then think, okay, what is the driving goal? What can we objectively measure to say we're going to get stronger? So, okay, say I had someone sign up who, for example, wants to improve their pull-ups and push-ups. They want to be strong. And how many people on here probably really want to improve their push-ups and pull-ups? So fundamentally, you base the program around that. Now, my rule of thumb is if you want to get better at something, you do it more. So arguably, with most people watching this, I'd say you can train 3 days a week and you're looking at that kind of full body split, and you put people on a push-pull and then full body kind of mechanism to practice your pull-ups, practice your push-ups, and then put them together and, put them into the same program. So fundamentally, just straight away from that focal point, you can branch down into the sections that work into your week. Now, don't make your workouts any longer than an hour. That's I say this now, nobody really wants to train longer than an hour unless you're sports specific, which sports specific also comes from the aesthetic side too. Now, okay, so we're talking about structure. We're talking about focused goals. When we're starting to build out those workouts that people want to do, what are some of the key variables that people need to factor in?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right. You nailed it on the head when basically frequency is more important at the beginning than the intensity of the exercise. So focusing on the amount of times you're going to train something, and then obviously setting yourself time constraints that aren't too crazy, number one. Then obviously, you said about variables, yeah?
Yeah, variable. What do you need to factor in? So say we're doing like that full body split of 3 sessions a week. What do people need to think about when they're going into those workouts?
So I mean, if we're looking at a completely foundational level, that covers everything. So we're talking about general strength. You're looking for compound lifts. Compound lifts are going to make up the bulk of your training. You're looking at, like, if you look at the body as a biomechanical mechanism, there we go. We move in movement patterns. We don't necessarily move in isolation. So for example, a bicep curl would be in isolation, but we don't move in that kind of way. When we lift something up off the ground, we use our biceps, but we also use our back, we use our legs. We need to think about how we can train our body in a functional strength type of way. Now, there's many reasons for this, because not only these functional movements are going to help us in our everyday life, but if we just train isolations, we're missing out on a lot of potential stabilizer gains that we could be making in the amount of time that we could do if we were doing compounds. And what I'm trying to say here, let's say we take a squat. Yeah, let's say we do 3 sets of 12 squats, take you about 10 minutes, 15 minutes if you take some good rest times. If you were to train all the leg muscles separately, leg extension, leg curl, calf raise, glute hip thrust, and then potentially even some core, because the squats are quite heavily on the core, that's about 45 minutes to an hour training the same muscles that a squat could do. You're saving so much time by focusing on a compound. Yes, it requires more intensity and effort, but the amount of benefits that a compound exercise gives you over isolations is vital. And then obviously that would then lead us on to Dan, as you know.
Well, I wanted to come in quickly and interject actually, because I think one of the big things people hear and they've heard for the last few years is optimal training, and it's only optimal to yourself. Like, you have to put yourself in the perspective. A lot of the fit influencers or fitfluencers tend to obviously speak about like doing certain ranges of motion. You need to hit this head, or you need to hit this long range, or you need to hit this short range. And I'm like, realistically, as Nick said there, he perfectly explained that. You need to find exercises which work the most amount of muscles. Yeah, they're not going to be the most isolating exercises in the world. So there are exercises out there. If you specifically want to grow your glutes, you go do this kind of formulative 4-3 exercises, you know, that are going to get you there. But you're thinking you're not going to have all the time in the world to train. So squat, hinge, press, row are normally like the 4 main kind of movement patterns that you're going to hit.
There's actually 8 movement patterns of the body, right? Now, two of them we're not going to necessarily talk about. So what I mean by those is, one is locomotion, which is movement, like walking. That's just fucking self-explanatory. And one is rotation. And rotation is important, but it's not something we look at when we look at compounds. There's not really rotational compound exercises to do, except for maybe like rotational machines. I don't know. Anyway, ignore it.
It's tough to hit. It's tough to do a rotation exercise. They are more isolated.
So these movement patterns, we've got the squat, the hinge, like you said. We've got the push, we've got the pull, and we've also got the vertical push and vertical pull. So when we say that, obviously vertical pull is like a pull-up, and then obviously horizontal pull is like a seated row. There's 2 similar movements, but obviously different angles of position we start in. We do need to train these movement patterns in order to be a functional and well-adapted athlete. Now, the specific side of things, when it comes to like isolations, or we add rotational exercises in, or we add different types of movement patterns in, is dependent on our goals. So a bodybuilder would then add isolations to build certain parts of his body, such as, let's say, the arms are lagging behind. So you're doing your compounds, but you notice your arms are a bit small compared to your shoulders. Bodybuilders would add slightly more arms into their program to focus on that area. If you're a CrossFit athlete, you're doing your compounds as usual, but you're probably adding in clean and jerks. You're probably adding in burpees. You're probably adding kipping pull-ups, all those really interesting exercises they do. And then you're adding like circuits to obviously help build the development of that side of things. If you're a triathlete, you'll be adding in the running components, the cycling components, the swimming components on top of that, swimming exercises to help the shoulders outside of the actual swimming pool itself. It all comes down to specifics, but your core compounds of your strength training should be those general movement patterns, regardless of what your goal is.
Apologies for interrupting the podcast. We know you're getting fully engrossed into this episode, and we really appreciate you stopping on the video on YouTube or on Spotify if you found us through one of the search pages. Make sure to leave a review and a subscription if you haven't already. But we just wanted to interject a point here that me and Nick have 15 years of coaching experience between us, and it's only getting better as we've got better guests on the podcast. The only way we can do that, though, is with the growth of our program that we've just released. We've got a 12-month Perform Well program, which has just dropped, and we'd love you guys to get involved in it. If you want to learn more details, make sure to head to the description, as we've got our website in there, which can give you a full overlay of the program. We're looking to help career-driven professionals, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and anyone dominate their life by improving their lifestyle. Me and Nick like to claim ourselves as experts in this area, and if you want to check out some of our other transformations, I'm sure you do. We've got some amazing people who have performed so well off the back of this program. Have a cracking day, and we really appreciate your time. Let's get back to the podcast. I think that's one thing that people need to take into account too, is if you are being sports specific or hobby specific, you need to sacrifice somewhere. Like Thomas Sowell put it well, that life's about trade-offs, not solutions. You're never going to be able to do everything unless you've got 2 hours a day to train. Fundamentally, I look back at some of the old workouts that I used to do, and they were 2 hours long, and I'm like, bloody hell, I couldn't imagine anything worse than doing that now. But like, so much of my time.
Question is, do you reckon, okay, if you took those 2 hour workouts away and you did what you do now, in terms of 45 minutes to an hour, would you be in the shape you are now?
I think this is my argument for it. I think foundationally, we're always going to go through a high volume phase. And that's something I did want to say, is when you're looking at kind of thinking how much should you do of an exercise, when you first start training, or you first start training a new movement pattern, the more you do, the more benefit it's going to have. So you want to fundamentally, for example, you're doing squats for the first time. You want to do a lot of squats. So give yourself like 4 or 5 sets of squats, however intense you want to do it, whether you're going to do it for the, a higher rep range, lower rep range, your choice. But fundamentally, your volume needs to be high on the things that you want to focus on. So going back to the pull-up and push-up conversation we were having earlier, do a lot of pull-ups, do a lot of push-ups, because you'll get better at them. And then just do
Mm.
like a focus block for 12 weeks, but you need to do it for a prolonged period of time. So just always account that in when you're doing it.
This actually brings us on to the conversation of like, now that we've talked about here's the exercises you should put in, at least in a basic strength plan, how many sets, how many reps, how long should we be holding each rep for? What is the correct way of creating tension on the muscle that is going to generate the strength we want? That is the question. Yeah.
That, I tell you what, and we actually spoke in one of our coaching groups that we had with a load of other guys who are fit pros, and they even said in it, they were like, well, everyone's going to have their different rep scheme. But the kind of caveat to that is everyone has a different rep scheme because they know what we call junk volume. Junk volume is a shit rep, essentially. It's a bad rep. The form's not there, the tension's not there, you're not getting the same stimulus out of it. Now, when you become more trained, you will find that you have less junk volume. So thereby, like me and Nick can do 6 reps of an exercise that will be better than your 15 because we know where to sit for the movement pattern. We can feel it. That kind of stuff. That builds up over time. Rep schemes, though, can be anything. If we're looking from a strength building standpoint, I argue you need to be about 1 to 6. 6 is the highest amount of reps you're doing for strength, like specifically strength on compounds. And then arguably what I like to use with my clients personally, and it's different from, I'm sure, myself and Nick, I like to do an 8 to 15 range when we're doing stuff, say, if you're doing bicep curls. 8's your bottom range, 15's your upper range. You can't hit 8, you lower the weight. You can hit 15, you increase the weight. Nice, easy range to work from. You're working through a nice little thing. And also the fact is, because you're doing so many reps, the likelihood is at least 2/3 of them are going to be good enough.
And there's proof out there to suggest that you only need one set of an exercise performed to a really good intensity, which means the muscle's burning, you're feeling the soreness in the muscle as you're doing the set. You only need one set to see significant improvements in that area. So does that mean you do one set? No, because it's good to have a warm-up set, a build-off set, etc. So we call these build-offs and back-off sets. So in our school of thought, we generally say 3 sets. So it gives you one set out of those 3 where you push it, normally to the max, and then 2 sets where you either build up to that weight or you come back down from that weight. And that's really effective because the set where you push it to failure is the set that you get most of your results from. But then your back off set can also allow you to increase, say, time to tension because it's less weight, slightly more tension on the muscle since it's going to be a little bit more fatigued at that point. Intensity of the amount of weight lifted versus the tension you feel with a lighter weight, they both have components that improve muscle size, and having them both together can really help with improving your strength and size in the short term. So we say 3 sets normally. Now, made a good point, 1 to 6 for strength. Obviously, if we're talking about strength gains, obviously ideal. If we're looking for muscle tone, anywhere between 4 upwards to 12 is what we're looking for. So I think what we would primarily do, I don't know if you do this as well, Dan, but I primarily focus on the 6 to 8 rep range when it comes to trying to build strength and size. And if I'm looking for something, say we're doing the bicep curls, I'll go more between the 8 and 12 rep range. Potentially 15 for, like, in my eyes, I look for 15 more like for face pulls, activation exercises, glute activation, because lighter weight feels better to activate the muscle with. So
I think the key thing you've got to take home from this as well is, like, me and Nick, we're business partners, we work for the same company, but fundamentally every coach is going to have what they like to do. And this is why we're saying that you need to find a method that works specifically for you and yourself. And, it takes time to work on that. Don't expect it in the first couple of weeks of training, because fundamentally it took us years, to actually find the sweet spot. And mine changes all the time. Like, that's not because it's bad. It's just because I'm learning better ways that work for myself and my clients.
But we can both agree on one thing though, Dan. Regardless of the fact that me and Dan have some slight change focus on our rep ranges, we both agree on one thing, which is you should be progressing the amount of weight you lift with the right amount of tension as you go throughout your journey. If you're lifting the same weight 2 years into your journey, and it's the same form, etc., you're not going to be any different.
And one thing I do want to add in very, very quickly is, this is just a little bit of off tangent, but it's about injuries, and just very quickly interjecting it. If you are struggling with an injury, don't start loading it with loads and loads of weight on movement patterns you can't do. If you can't do a glute bridge, don't start doing like barbell hip thrusts. Get your movement pattern first. So just an interjection for anyone
it's good. And then the last thing, obviously, is how many times a week do you train a muscle? Like, we talked about movement patterns, and you've got to do the squat, you've got to do the deadlift, etc., or potentially some version of a hinge. How many times do you train it? And, studies have suggested that training a muscle twice a week is the most effective in terms of what are you putting 2 up for?
For twice a week.
You fucking dick, man. You know, this is, see, me and Dan, look, thing is, me and Dan, we don't script these podcasts. We say what we found works, and we both agree too. Training a muscle 2 times a week is the most effective. You get the most recovery in between, and also the most amount of exposure to stimulus, making it better. Once a week's too low, and 3's a little bit on the high ends.
You can do 3 for larger muscle groups. Anyone who's here for glute training, want to tone out their bottoms, you can do 3 for stuff like glutes and quads because they're larger muscle groups. And core, I wouldn't do it for stuff like biceps and triceps because you use them in other movements too.
That's bang on. So if we're looking at a pyramid from the beginning, we got to think how many times a week. So 3 times a week. So now I need to fit in all my major movement patterns twice in each of those 3 sessions. That's going to require a little bit of finessing. That's why we're here. Then you've got to think, right, 3 sets of 6 to 8 or 8 to 12 or 12 to 15. You know, just stick between a certain rep range for at least 4 weeks and then move on. Primarily, it's best to start off with a higher rep range at the beginning whilst you're new to the exercise, because it means you can lift a lighter weight, focus on good form. As you get better with the training, you can start pushing up to the 6 to 8 rep range with more weight. And then obviously, don't spend too long in the gym. Make sure recovery is on point because that's where you get your strength gains.
I agree. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for watching, guys. And hopefully this has helped you guys with your strength gains. If you've got any questions, please drop them in the comments or get hold of me and Nick on our socials. It's been a great podcast. Make sure to subscribe, follow, leave those 5 stars on Spotify if you're listening. And we'll catch you guys next week.
Ciao, ciao.